Welcome back to Nissa World Wake. Today I will be talking about Mystical Tutor, Enlightened Tutor, and Vampiric Tutor in Arena Cube and in Vintage Cube. This video was brought to my attention because in playing an Arena Powered Cube, one of my opponents cast Mystical Tutor. They tutored for Enlightened Tutor. With their Enlightened Tutor, they tutored for Mana Vault. On the next turn, they cast Mana Vault, and they promptly died because they spent all of the resources and time just to put a Mana Vault into play, as opposed to developing their board or doing anything impactful. When you Mystical Tutor for Enlightened Tutor for Mana Vault is no longer 1 mana, add 3. It is this card, where it costs 1 and a white and a blue, and as an additional cost to cast this spell, you have to discard 2 cards. They took off multiple turns and went down in card advantage and spent a total of 3 mana across those turns in order to put this into play. This is not a perfect comparison, but it's a good approximation. Every time you cast one of these 3 1-mana tutors, what you're effectively doing is adding 1 mana to the cost of whatever you're tutoring for. You're losing 1 card, since what you're finding is going on the top of your deck instead of directly into your hand. Your hand will go from, say, 4 cards to 3. Then on your next turn, you'll draw up to 4, but you would have been drawing a card anyway. And it loses you a turn of speed because you're not getting that card immediately. You have to take that extra card draw in order to actually get it into your hand. So let's say you were Enlightened Tutoring for a Black Lotus. That Black Lotus effectively cost 1 white mana, and it caused you to skip a draw. This would make Black Lotus worse than Dark Ritual if it costs a white and has you skip a draw step. So it's very important when you're drafting these 1-mana tutors to have a really good game plan in mind and understand what you're doing to yourself when you cast these. So that begs the question, why would you ever cast these, and what should your plan be if you are? Well, let's start with Enlightened Tutor. So this is going to be for Arena Powered Cube mainly, but there's going to be a Vintage Cube shout out. So one natural target for Enlightened Tutor is to get fast mana. In my opinion, Mana Vault costing 2 to make 3 colorless and you're skipping a draw is not worth doing. Black Lotus is kind of medium. Like I said, it's roughly equivalent to Dark Ritual, except you're skipping a draw. But if you're getting some super powerful threat out way early, like if it's turn 1 Enlightened Tutor, turn 2 Black Lotus into a 5-drop bomb, maybe Elspeth, that could be worth doing, but as a rule of thumb, it's not. And then Soul Ring is probably worth tutoring for. You get 2 mana back every single turn, so the value it generates is probably okay, but just make sure to think about if losing the card and the mana is worth it. This is where the Vintage Cube shoutout comes in. Grim Monolith and Basalt Monolith are both in the Arena Powered Cube. And they have combos with Zerta and Forensic Gadgeteer, where you can tap and untap them infinitely to generate infinite colorless mana. This is worth tutoring for if you are playing Vintage Cube. The goal with these tutors is to do something so powerful that the mana disadvantage, tempo disadvantage, and card disadvantage simply doesn't matter. You've won the game before those come into effect. So generating infinite mana is a reason to go down tempo and to go down cards. But since on Arena you're not able to do these infinite combos, it is not worth doing on Arena. Do not Enlightened Tutor for Grim Monolith and Basalt Monolith. Moving forward on Powered Cube and Vintage Cube, these are potentially fine to tutor for. Crucible of Worlds, if you kind of already have a Strip Mine lock built in where you're getting a couple land drops from the and you can have the Strip Mine in play. If you're Enlightened Tutoring for Crucible of Worlds, that can almost instantly end the game if you just start double stripping someone every turn. Kappa Cannoneer, you're cheating on its cost, so taking the card disadvantage and having it cost one more in theory, you're still putting a huge threat into play that will hopefully kill your opponent in 2 or 3 turns. If you need a way to close out a game, this is a fine thing to tutor for, I would say. And Skull Clamp, really the artifact should cost more than 1. It's drawing you cards, so the card disadvantage is kind of null. So I'd say overall Skull Clamp is a fine thing to tutor for. The problem is, again, it's just the tempo loss. But both cards cost 1, and it's drawing you back up, so it should be okay. Now, on to the best things to Enlightened Tutor for on Arena. Parallax Wave. It is a combo with Containment Priest where your opponent's creatures are gone forever, but also it can just remove 4 blockers and have you get in. So if you and your opponent are kind of stalled on board, you Enlightened Tutor for Wave, get rid of their creatures, and attack twice. The game ends before the fact that you have card disadvantage really came into play. Agatha's Soul Cauldron is a combo piece if you have Loot or if you have Grizzlebrand. So again, with these tutors, you want to be doing something so unfair that the card disadvantage didn't matter. So if you do have the combo set up, Soul Cauldron is fine. Sneak Attack, again, it is the combo. Your deck should be built around Sneak Attack. This is a second copy of the best card in your deck. And Underworld Breach and Storm, or just outside of it, it's a powerful enough card that is going to let you do broken enough things that the card disadvantage and the tempo disadvantage doesn't matter. In the early turns of Storm, what you're doing is setting up the hand so that you can go off. So Enlightened Tutor will unlock your hand so that you can have the nice Storm turn. Moving forward to Mystical Tutor, there are many, many more cards to Mystical Tutor for, including the other tutors. Do not tutor for the other tutors with Mystical. It just puts you down so much, as we demonstrated early on. But one thing people always jump to is Ancestral Recall and Time Walk. If Ancestral Recall is blue, draw 2, that is not a particularly powerful card. It's fine, but that should not be what you're going out of your way to do. If you tutor for Time Walk, it kind of turns into a 3 mana, take an extra turn, skip your draw step, since you're getting that card disadvantage. And I'd say that's a fine card. I wouldn't go out of my way to do it every single time, but you know, if you have a Planeswalker out, or if you're winning on board and can chip in damage twice, it can generate enough value that is worth it. So keep those in mind as far as power. Good cards to Mystical Tutor for. Time Twister, Wheel of Fortune. This also goes for Echo of Eons and Time Spiral and all the wheels. But the card disadvantage doesn't matter because we're wheeling anyway. So if my hand was 4 cards, I play a tutor down to 3, and then I draw this. It doesn't matter that I went down because we're all getting fresh hands anyway. So if you need a wheel, Mystical Tutoring form is not bad. It's nearly the same as just casting them normally. Moving on to the Wraths. These are definitely fine things to tutor for. If you need a Wrath desperately because your opponent, has a board full of creatures, casting a tutor for a Wrath is a lot better than dying. And again, the card disadvantage doesn't matter as much because in theory, you're spending 2 cards to kill your opponent's entire board, which is likely at least 2 cards. So if you're doing that, you're still kind of winning the card advantage battle, and you're not dead, and you get to keep playing Magic. It's particularly interesting with Balance because you are going down cards in hand. So if your opponent both has a threatening board and lots of cards in hand, the fact that you're going down on cards to tutor for the Balance is actually a benefit for you. And then we have the best Mystical Tutor targets on Arena. These are the 1-card combo, 1-card win the game type effects, where if you just tutor for Flash, then untap and cast Flash, you should be winning the game regardless. Same with Show and Tell, Tinker, Channel, Natural Order. Some of these require a second piece, but they are worth Mystical Tutoring for if you're doing that second piece. Hopefully your entire deck should be built around this. And with these tutors, I've said it a couple times, but they're at their best if the disadvantage you're incurring doesn't matter at all because you've already won the game. If there was a spell that said discard 6 cards, win the game, you would play that because you don't need those cards anymore. You've already won the game. So if you're doing some kind of spell-based combo deck, it is worth mystical tutoring for those combo pieces. So here are the best ones on Arena. And then the last one of the 1 mana tutor cards is Vampiric Tutor. And Vampiric Tutor can find all of the Enlightened Tutor targets, all of the Mystical Tutor targets, and then can also find creatures and lands. I looked through the lands in Arena Powered Cube and didn't find any that I thought were worth going down a card to do. If you're doing the Dark Depths Thespian Stage combo, it's fine. Again, it's doing something powerful enough that it's almost worth going down a card. I wouldn't be excited to do that. If you are doing the strip mine thing, you can tutor for strip mine. Again, I wouldn't be excited to do that. But if it does instantly win you the game, it is worth doing. And then the main thing that Vampiric Tutor can tutor for outside of the other ones is the big creatures that go with the show and tell, go with the sneak attack, go with the flash. So if you need these in your hand to do part of your combo, that is where Vampiric Tutor can come in. So just a shorter video talking about the 1 mana card disadvantage tutors, and most importantly, don't play these wrong. It is much more easy to play these cards wrong than to play them right. So just make sure that you are taking into account that they are losing you a card, costing you a mana, and costing you tempo when you cast these. So use this advice to do better in your cube drafts. Thank you very much for watching, and have a good day.